Hello everyone. I hope you all are well. Sorry. I have to turn my little light on. It's a little dark in here. I don't really like to have the lights on. I don't know. Like, I'm okay with being darkness. I ain't afraid of no ghost. Speaking of ghosts, I have a ghost story for you. I was trying to decide if I wanted to split these messages up because they may be a little long, but I'm just gonna go with it. If my camera recording stops, like I say, it's spirit. Okay, spirit has been doing it a lot to my videos. I don't know why, because I will go check my phone and the recording, like, it says I have space in there, but spirit does that all the time, and so I'm just gonna flow with it. Okay, I just got hot over here, so I already know I have a spirit with me. This is a newness. Okay, it's not really new, but it's more, I'm more aware of it. Okay, so have a few messages, right? But the first message I got was a download about the mind, right? And so spirit came through. I was watching one of my videos trying to see if I was going to edit it or not. And so the camera stopped at 22:13. And I was just like, man, like, so I just went through it to see if I was going to say part 1 or part 2. But I think I put the video as how I follow my intuition, right? And how I allow spirit, the Most High, to lead me. Okay. Oh, I know why I just got hot. Yeah, I had took some pain pills because my leg it hurts a little bit, not often, but every now and then I'll get a little shock, a little hurt from it. Okay. And so this is the download I got. The mind is a tool that maintains your vibrational frequency. The more you clear or integrate the shadow into truth, the more the mind will remind you of the goodness of your outside reality. And so that's self-explanatory. Okay, the mind is all about cultivated life experiences. It's all about ancestry life experiences. That mind has been with you since your beginning evolution, okay? Since not the beginning of this lifetime, but the beginning of the beginning, your mind has been there, okay? And so you just carry it with you through each lifetime. And so that's how come you have so much accumulated stuff, so much accumulated static in the field, right? And so it also helps the mind, shapes your DNA also, okay? And so that's a study that has been studied, how the mind contributes to how well you heal, to how spirit, okay, how well you heal, because it will. And yes, spirit is here. They wanted me to remind you, because they was like, you just said we wasn't here because you just got hot. And that, yeah, that's crazy. They just oh my goodness. So spirit wanted you all to know how the mind shapes, how it helps you heal, because it will bring up things about how you saw someone else not heal. It will bring up things on how in a past life you didn't heal something correctly, or something didn't get healed right. The mind does things like that, right? And so that was one of the things spirit wanted you all to know, okay? And you know, the ancestry, you share that learning, that learned history with your ancestors, communal, you know, that DNA frequency. It also plays a part in your mind stuff, right? And so next we have, this was crazy to me. So I put up the video talking about how yesterday you will get information for the next day. So along that information yesterday, I was getting things about a sociopath. And I was just like, you know, it was just saying like things about like how to tell a sociopath. They don't have no empathy. They don't have no facial expression. It's like a sociopath will not know how to respond, and you will often catch them smiling when someone is sharing a sad story, okay? And they'll do it by mistake. They'll often mimic you, okay? They'll mimic your, you know, mimic the way you are expressing yourself, because they want to blend in with you, right? And so that was something. So this morning, right, I don't know, I got this sense of I need to go to the VA. I need to go back to the emergency room. I don't know why, but I later understood why, okay? And I'm going to talk to you about that, right? And that's all included with the sociopath. That's all. I'm going to talk to you about the energy of comparison, okay? I'm going to talk to you about being a witness for the deceased, okay? I'm going to talk to you about how spirit teaches you how to trust, okay? And the spirit, thank you for being, I heard them in my ear, how spirits teach you how to trust, and how spirit keeps you 10 steps ahead of the physical reality. How that's when they say like how spirit plays chess, not checkers, okay? This is what I'm gonna talk about, right? What spirit want me to talk about with you all, okay? And so when I went to the VA, now I had to go all the way out to Temple, Texas. That's like an hour away, okay? And so once I got there, I went to the emergency room. It was a few people in there, but not a lot. And so you know, they go through the back, go through the triage and stuff like that. You know, that was a little bit strange, because I understood that the person, the triage nurse, that I just saw like repetition in there, like checklist repetition. It was no sense of compassion in that space at all. And I didn't really think too much of it, but I did. Like, it was brought to my attention, so I didn't really like, okay. But I understand that that is the program of that hospital. That is the energetic frequency of that hospital. And I understood why spirit sent me there, okay? And so they finally called me to the back. I think I was waited for about like 2 hours. They called me to the back. And so I go, the guy who called me to the back, he didn't have no facial expression. It's just like they were like mummies. Like they were just operating. And I understand like you have a job to do, but any other hospital clinic that I have ever been to, they've had a level of empathy. When you work in healthcare, you will have some empathy, something within you. Like, what made you be a healthcare provider anyway, right? You have that sense of, I want to help, right? And maybe they could have become numb, right? That was another reason spirit could have shown me that, like how humans become numb to the mundaneness of everyday life, their life, right? Because it starts not to have a meaning anymore, right? So that could be another reason why spirit brought me there, right? And so get in there, and so he was like, okay, doctor be here any minute, you know, just sit tight or whatever. So he goes out, and I'm sitting there like just, you know, closing my eyes. I was holding my cellulite, and I was just like trying to like bring myself to a sense of calm, thinking of some questions I wanted to ask the doctor, because I'm the type of person, I want to know what's going on. Like, I'm always asking questions. That's just how I am. And so I'm thinking of some questions to ask him, and then I start getting the energy of comparison coming in. And then it was like, I don't know, it was just the energy of comparison, the way the thoughts came in, okay? And so I am more of a clairaudient I am a clairaudient, empathetic clairaudience. What is that called? Telepathic. I receive telepathic communication, right? I receive the energy of the person before I see them. I pick up their clothes, like their clothes book is exposed to me, right? That's how spirit protects me, and that's how spirit teaches you that you are protected. You have nothing to worry about. That helps build in a level of safety for you when you're out in this outside reality, right? And so that's another thing. So keynote, right? And so when the doctor came in, he said, oh, hey, Holyfield. And I said, it's Holyfield. And then he said, wait, what? And I said, holy. And then he said, oh, I thought I said holy. And then he was like, oh, maybe it's the way I said it. And I said, it's okay, like, don't worry about it. And so when he asked me what was going on, and he said, I see you have like some drainage going on and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, well, I went to the emergency room and this is what they told me. And then he instantly went into, oh, well, how long did you wait there? 11:11 just passed on my timer. How long did you wait there? And I said, they gave me a CAT scan. They gave me a ultrasound, you know, on the vein, a CAT scan on the leg. And they determined this, like, it's like I had all this information for him and he didn't even care. He was more worried about how their structure was ran more than concerned about my initial problem. And I was like, wow, spirit, like, wow. And then he went to ask me, I said, yeah, you know, I was seeing pretty fast there. I said, surprisingly quicker than you. He said, oh, it must have come from a lot of complaints. And I was just like, wow. And then I said, well, I tried to get the picture of the CAT scan, but the lady wouldn't disclose it to me. And he said, sure, she could have. I don't know why she didn't. That's your record. I said, well, she said it was on the email and blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, well, another thing, he said, well, he said, well, did she do a culture exam of it? I said, no. And he was like, well, she should have did that. But yet and still, you didn't do it, right? If you know that's something someone should have done, you should have done it, right? And so that was spirit, like, was showing me, like, how comparison is. Like, even in physical, you know, when you're communicating with someone and you have that inner sense of comparison, and just like, oh, well, they didn't say this, they didn't say that, like, and it was kind of like that. And so spirit was showing me what it's like when people become like comparison. And this could be like an inner, you may not even catch it. It can be so subtle, right? And so it's just like, who can do it better than me? Who can do it better than this facility? But the whole time you're worrying about that, you're not worrying about what you're supposed to be doing. Thank you, spirit. And so another thing that came up, I was like, well, wow, like, it was more or less like, he didn't see himself. And so because he had that energy on him, he could have been raised in that type of environment to where he was not recognized. He probably had an older brother or a younger sibling that did more. Okay, his family could have compared him to others, and that's exactly what spirit was showing me, right? And I was like, wow, that's, you know, deep. You know what I'm saying? That was really deep to me, that spirit was showing me that. And so after he did all of that, well, he didn't, you know, he did what he did, okay? And so he was like squeezing it and all of this stuff, and it was really hurting. And I said, well, what are you doing? He was like, well, I'm just trying to see what the liquid looks like. And he said, oh, that just looks like regular liquid drainage or whatever. Then he pressed into it really hard, and I was like, ouch. And then he was like, oh, well, what did he say? Like, I'm just seeing if any more liquid gonna come out. And he was like, no more is coming out, so that means it's healing really well. I said, or is it? I said, because the hospital said that I may need a surgeon. And so he looked at the list that I had gave him, you know, the discharge paper that I had given him, and he said, okay, we'll set you up with a outpatient surgeon just in case. He said they'll call you and they'll, you know, they'll set you up with something. I said, okay, thank you. And so he wound up leaving out. And then I just received those downloads about the energy of comparison, what it looks like, and how it can cause you to miss out on your blessings, your opportunities, because you're too busy comparing yourself to someone else, right? So that was one thing that Spirit brought to my attention, right? And so I was just like, and then of course, you know, my old checking ass, I want to see who have I compared myself to. I'm just like, okay. But I do notice though, when I look at YouTube, and so I'll see like some people like pop up on my timeline, and then I'll see a video, and then I'll look at how many views they had or how many likes. And I noticed like when I would like look on YouTube, I'll be like, damn, this was a really good video. How come they didn't get more likes than that? So I was noticing that, right? I have been noticing that. That has been coming to my awareness. And so I was just like, but I already stopped doing that, right? A long time ago. I think I put a video about that. I don't do that anymore. I don't care, like, if you watch this video or not. Like, this video is to help you, right? But, you know, a lot of people are not on the same timeline that I'm on. And so I don't dabble in drama. You know, I don't channel that energy here. And when I do channel something that's of a different dimension, thank you, Spirit, of a different dimension, then I'll put it out, because Spirit needs for you to be aware of something, because you may not be seeing something clearly enough, right? And so I'll put it out there, okay? And so the next one came in was sociopath. This was really something to me, because the nurse that came in to patch me up, he didn't have none of that. And he had this tattoo on him, was very familiar to me. And I said, oh, is that, what type of sacred geometry is that? And then he said, well, it's not really sacred geometry. This is called the Philosopher's Stone from the movie Full Metal Alchemist. And I said, wow. And then he said, in the movie, this man makes the alchemist stone, and he uses this stone to steal the energy of a whole village. Now, you know, my spiritual mind went the clocking it down. So this particular person, whoever this guy was who used the alchemist created an alchemy stone to take energy from a village, harvesting energy, right? It is harvesting energy off your personalities. So whatever personality you are in at that time, that's the energy that you're sending out. And this particular stone or something harvested that energy, and it fed it into the person, and it gave them different type of powers according to the energy it harvests out of a village. And I was like, wow, Spirit, like the way Spirit laid that down on me. And the fact that he had it on, the fact that he, to me, that represented, he didn't have any essence within him. Not essence in the way of, I don't know, spiritual essence. Maybe it's locked up. I don't know. Okay, I gotta grab myself and make sure I'm saying it right, Spirit. Maybe he didn't have, I don't know, like, maybe his essence had got locked away because of his mundane routine, right? And so we were talking, and then he didn't understand what I was saying, but yet still you got that tattoo on you. A lot of times people talk the talk but don't walk the walk, right? And he had that whole tattoo on him and didn't really understand what it means. And I said, well, you know, alchemy, Philosopher's Stone, is to turn lead into gold. That's talking about your inner self, you changing your soul state to match the golden child, that golden energy frequency. And he was just like, what do you mean? And I was just like, So you know there are like multiple layers of you. And I said, and then he was just numb in the face. And I said, okay, let me be quiet. Like, because he wasn't getting it. Maybe I planted a seed in him. I don't know. But Spirit had that interaction happen for a reason. Understand, every time you interact with someone, it's definitely for a reason. And so when he leaves out, here I go questioning myself. Spirit, am I a sociopath? Like, checking in with myself, like, oh my God. And so when he came back, I was telling him that my leg was hurting. And then he was, no facial expression. He was just, okay. Well, we have these pads for you. And this is going to allow you to take a shower, okay? Because this is waterproof. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, thank you so much. And he was like, we're going to get your discharge papers. We're going to get you out of here. Okay, that's fine. I was only in that part of the room for like 30 minutes. And then I left out. And then he was like, I'm going to show you how to get out. And he said, whoever made this setup need to be killed. And the way that he said it, it was so weird. And not only that, when I was coming into the place, it was, I asked the lady, you know, which way to the emergency room. And she said, it's that way, that way. She said, well, we're going in construction and I'm not really sure. She said, let me walk you over here so you can see where it is. And she said, I don't want to be made out to be a liar. She kept saying that over and over again. Like, I don't want to be made out to be a liar. And I was just like, wow. She said, and so I'll just show you. And I was just like, okay, thank you for that. And like I said, when I get messages of the day, that's for me to be aware of something for tomorrow. And I'm always checking with myself to see if I'm lying about something. Am I leaving a truth out? Am I not saying something that shouldn't be said? And so I guess Spirit was showing me how I am when I do something, because I'm always in that space. Checking with myself, checking in to see, am I in a resonance frequency of divine truth? I don't know where that comes from. Like I say, when I had this soul walk in, everything just changed for me. Like, everything has been like, this has to go this way, this needs to be a certain way in order to maintain balance, in order to maintain order. I don't know what this is. That's this new energy that I'm vibrating at, okay? And so it is teaching me things, okay? And so the next thing that came up, so this morning I saw, like, I was talking about my dream, right? I think I put that in the video. And so in the dream, I was talking about me being on a bus leaving away. And I'm gonna show you the multi-layer of the dream, of the dimensions of this reality, right? And so I seen that. And so I'm sitting in the waiting room and a guy walked in. He looked so much older than he said he was, okay? He said he was born in 83. This man looked so older, like older than me. And I just was aware of it, and I went back down into, I was playing a game on my phone, Mahjong tiles. I was playing it on my phone. I don't know, I like to keep my brain. Anyway, and so he said, I'm trying to get home. And he said, the bus, the lady, he said, I need to talk to somebody about getting home. And they asked him his birthday, and he gave him his birthday, 6/23/83. And I was just like, oh, okay. Spirit, don't play with me. Oh, I thought it was the, I was gonna say, Spirit, stop playing. Okay, and so I was aware of that, and he tried to use like 3 or 4 different phone calls to call his woman, he said. And he was calling for one number, another number, another number, and the area code was 815. And so he couldn't get the number right. And his shoes looked at tattered. They looked at worn. And I was just like, oh man, like, just, you know, aware. I wasn't judging, I was just observing. And so he was like, I'm so happy. I just got a letter that says I'm 80% service connected and 10 years back pay. And so they called a social service worker to the front, and she said, you missed the bus. and she said the bus that runs from the hospital to the inner city, it stopped working. It stopped running at 5 o'clock, and she said it's 5:46, so you missed the bus. And so he was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get home. And so he left out of there. But when he walked in, he waved at me. And I was like, hi, you know, wave back at him. So weird. And so he left out. I went to the emergency room, did what I did, and I left out. And as I'm coming, go get my medicine from the pharmacy, because they gave me a different prescription, 25 on my timer. They gave me a different prescription to work with a particular infection. And so this prescription works with staph infection instead of the other antibiotics that covers a wide range of infections. So this particular prescription antibiotic, it works with this type of infection. Okay, so I understand why I went there now. Thank you, Spirit. Because I was like, why did I come up here? And I get it, right? And so it hones in on the singularity of the infection instead of a wide range of infections, right? And so as I'm leaving out the door, here go this man walking, waving. I said, you know, looking through my phone, like seeing what time it was, because it seemed weird, slow motion type of thing. And so as I'm walking over, trying to get my bearings, because I never been to this VA before, I happened to look over, and he's there. And I'm just like, and he, hey. I'm like, hey, how you doing, you know? And so I was standing there, like, waiting for the light to change. And so he was like, what did he say? He was just talking. And so I just started talking to him or whatever, talking back, because that's just what I am. And so he was like, oh, I'm so happy. And I said, congratulations to you. You know, that's good for you. And then he said, it's been 10 years. And I said, well, what? I said, what happened to where it took that long? He said, well, you know, I went astray. I was, you know, got into drugs and things like that. And, you know, I had to come back, get myself together, and then, you know, reapply and stuff like that. And I said, oh, well, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. And then he was like, man, I can't wait, because I'm gonna get me a car. And then something told me to tell him, I don't know why this was important, that he need to focus on getting him a place. I said you should focus on getting you a place with that money. I said focus on taking care of yourself with that money. I said focus on making sure that you're stable. I said, because I heard that Trump passed a law that says people on disabilities who receive government funding, if they are homeless, the government has a right to take their funds from them and put them in a group home and use that money for a group home. And I told that to him, and then it's like he didn't hear me, and then I repeated it. And then he said, okay, well, thank you for that. And then he went on to say something else about it may, like, his funds will increase because of his rank in the military. And I kind of felt a sense of, like, anger with that. And I said, who told you that? And he said, oh, one of my buddies. I said, that's not how that works. Like, I said, no, they just pay you based on your percentage, like your rating of whatever ailment you have. And then he was like, well, thank you for that. And I said, oh, you're welcome. I said, I'm not trying to, you know, throw no shade. I said, but I said, that's not how that works. Like, I just wanted him to know the truth. It's often too many times that we are out here in this reality just experiencing it off what someone else says. And I really wanted to, I got told him, so I'm not trying to burst your bubble, like, I said, but I just want you to know the truth, like. And he was like, oh, no, thank you for telling me that. He said, because, you know, he said, I don't want to get my hopes up high either. And I was just like, okay, it kind of made sense. And so he didn't have a ride. And so he said he was waiting for his daughter or his woman, something, her name was Crystal. And so I was just like, okay, well, have a good day, you know. And oh no, but before that, we started talking about God and how, I said, oh, he said how he had to go away, he come back, God got a blessing for him. I said, oh, you're like the prodigal son. And then he said, what do you mean? I said, you know, the son that went away to experience the world, and then when he came back, God blessed him with open arms. And then he said, wow, yeah, thank you for that. And then he was like, God ain't gonna never leave you. I said, no, he can't, because God is in you. And then he just like looked at me like that. And then I go on about my business, right? And so as I'm going home, I started seeing the word the Trinity. I started seeing the word Yeshua, Christ, right? I started seeing those words, right? And I see like the way the clouds look. The clouds look like beautiful rays beaming through the clouds. It was just so amazing the way the clouds look, okay? And I was just like, wow. And then my ear made that noise, so I knew Spirit was there with me, right? And so when Spirit made that noise, I said, oh, the bus thing, like the bus thing. That's all I could say, and I was saying it in my head. And so as I get in the house, I make Nico some food. I make me some food, because with these new pills, I can't eat dairy. I'm not supposed to be eating dairy any damn way. So that was good. And so yesterday I made nachos. And so I make Nico some nacho french fries, and I made me something else. And so I turn on Hulu to watch something on Hulu, like, so I can fall asleep too. And I see this show they got called Unnamed Graves. And I said, oh, Spirit, this is something I need to watch. Because I really watch it. But before that, I started like, because I got in the shower. But before that, my thoughts was taken over by a person, a spirit. I felt it. I just didn't know who and what it was. I felt the way my thoughts was, and the thoughts were giving me songs about love, and it was just talking about love songs. And I was like, oh, like somebody was telling me that they love me, and I was like, oh, okay. So I sat on the bed, and I was like, I'm not watching. I'm gonna turn to American Dad. That's what I always watch, because it's funny. And so I felt the sense of warmth in my heart, and I said, okay, let me see what this is about. And so as I'm watching the show, they're talking about a serial killer that killed from Chicago to Indiana. And his name was Larry, was it Charles Eckley or something like that? He had killed 21 people, young boys, who were like hitchhiking. And I said, okay, what the heck is this, Spirit? Like, what am I watching? And then 2 bodies were never found. Well, they were found, but they didn't have homes. No one claimed the bodies, right? And so finally, like, the one black male, he went missing in 1983. The guy's birthday that I seen today, 83. He was trying to find a ride. The man hitchhiking on the story on Hulu. When they finally found his family, because it took it a long time to find his family, 33 on my timer. It took a long time to find his family. He went missing at the age of 18, and they didn't find his family like 20, 30 years later. However, from 83 to now, they didn't find him to that long of a time. And so remember, I said the guy, he was born in 83. I was born in 77. Why did this man look so much older than what he was? Remember when and so when the sister was speaking, wow, and she said that she remembered when they were kids, he used to take them on a bus, and she would look out the bus, out the windows, and how she always felt safe and protected around her brother. When I say I was ready to break down crying, And then Spirit was like, you witnessed. You, before he passed away, no one witnessed him. No one saw him. And I witnessed this spirit. He was using this man in a spirit, as a representation of him. And the reason it came to me, because when my son passed away, the police didn't care. And it was like what his sister said. She said they didn't care. It was just like another missing black person who cares. And that mother in me, divine mother energy in me, it witnessed him home. And because I talked to him about the prodigal son, 35 one timer, I witnessed him, and I witnessed him going home. He was saying that he was home. And when they buried him next to his mom. That is just a beautiful story, okay? I don't know how else to say that, but that's amazing, okay? And so that's the message, the story time, okay? Hell, Nico dropping stuff. That's the story time, okay? It's just a beautiful message. I have this weird looking beetle on my wall. I always keep my patio door open, and so the inside is the outside here. And so that's the message. That I thought that was a beautiful message. Like this whole orchestration, how Spirit orchestrates things for me to see things. And I'm trying to see if Spirit wants to talk about anything else, but I think I'm going to name this video Story Time. I think I'm going to have this a lot more often, okay? Because I often channel spirits, okay? I often communicate with crossed over loved ones, and it be the ones that the children, when they pass away, when they're children and they pass away very traumatic, I often channel that energy. And because the way my son passed away, so it's like I have that soul's loop. A lot of children who passed away tragically, I witnessed them, and so the Spirit was showing me like the multi-layered, the dimensions of witnessing, the dimensions of healing, by me being who I am, and by me holding the vibrational frequency to understand it. That is why his soul came to me. It's just so crazy. And then I wound up watching it on TV hours later. That's how Spirit works, okay? So Spirit is always 10 steps ahead of the game. Spirit is always with you. Spirit is always letting you know the 411 of things before it even happened. Spirit already sees it. Spirit knows every move you're gonna make, right? So it's just like, why not trust it, right? Why not? And that brings you such a peace of calm, okay? And so I'm gonna get out of here because I definitely want to do a reading on the energy. So namaste, guys. I love you all so much. Bye.